Chapter 4. Misinterpret. Then she noticed Irvin walking in their direction, and she panicked. She needed to get away. But as she turned to leave, she tripped over her own feet and fell to the ground. To make matters worse, the heel of her shoe came off, leaving her feeling even more embarrassed. Great. Just great, she muttered to herself. She could feel Irvin's eyes on her, and she wished she could just disappear into thin air.
Are you okay?
Stephen rushed over and was about to help her. He stopped and turned to look at Irvin instead, who was a few paces behind them.
Come on, man, help her out,
he said, waving at him. Irvin hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure if he should get involved. And by the way, why was Stephen telling him to help when he was standing right there in front of her? While Skylar pouted over her shoes, she heard Irvin say,
I think she's all right.
Skylar became angry. All right? I'm literally on the ground with a broken shoe with no one helping, and he said I'm all right. How dare he answer on my behalf? She tried to stand but felt a sharp pain in her ankle, and she winced, falling back to the ground. Irvin's concern grew as he saw Skylar fall to the ground. Without hesitation, he hurried over to her side, kneeling down to assess the situation.
Are you hurt?
Skylar looked up at him, surprised by his sudden display of care. She nodded, trying to hide the pain in her eyes. I think I twisted my ankle, she replied, her voice shaky. Stephen gasped and knelt down beside them.
Oh dear. Irvin, why don't you send her home? She can't drive like this.
I can't,
retorted Irvin.
What about the meeting?
Skylar's attention shifted to Irvin's words. She rolled her eyes away while muttering quietly to herself. You bailed at my meeting. Why can't you bail this one? Irvin shot her a look because he heard her.
It's okay. I'll handle it,
said Stephen.
I'm pretty sure it's just some papers to sign. You go with Skylar and make sure she gets home safely.
Skylar waited for Irvin's response, curious if he would do what Stephen suggested, but his expression was indecisive. Stephen's words had taken him aback. Skylar felt let down by Irvin's initial hesitation. Wasn't she essential enough for him to inconvenience himself a little bit? She bit her lips. She must be kidding herself. He wouldn't leave her 5 years ago if she were important.
How about this?
Said Irvin, looking at Stephen.
I will go to the meeting, and you take Skylar.
Skylar, do something. He's gonna leave. Ow! My leg! Cried Skylar. Irvin, I think it's broken. Irvin's heart skipped a beat at Skylar's cry of pain. He looked at her and found her biting her lips, her eyes pleading with him. He knew that look. She was using the same trick she used to use on him when they were together. The look that always made him give in to her demands.
Irvin, Skylar is hurt. You should take her to the hospital,
Stephen said, concerned.
Don't stress about the appointment. I got it.
Irvin's eyes welled up as he slowly nodded his head. Stephen smiled and gave him a thumbs up. Irvin gently scooped Skylar up and cradled her in his arms. Skylar's heart raced at the proximity, the familiar scent of his cologne enveloping her. It was a bittersweet reminder of what they once had. As Stephen exited the door, he winked at Skylar, making her smile. A moment later, Irvin and Skylar drove in silence. Memories flooded her mind. She couldn't help but recall the countless times they had been in a car together, laughing and singing along to their favorite songs. It felt both nostalgic and heartbreaking. But enough of that right now. She quickly put on her distressed face. Irvin, I'm sorry. Skylar finally broke the silence. Your meeting must have been very important, but because of me... Skylar knew the number one rule was getting the guy's sympathy. She smirked, hoping her acting would work. I'm such a punk, I'm sorry again, said Skylar. Irvin's grip on the steering wheel softened, and his voice relaxed as he spoke.
You don't have to apologize, Skylar. It's not like you're doing this on purpose.
Skylar was stunned by his words. Does this mean he has caught on? She wondered. As she was too busy with her thoughts, they had arrived at a place and parked at a parking lot. She finally noticed that the place was not a hospital but a shoe store. Why are we here? she asked, her voice filled with curiosity. Irvin turned to face her.
Well, since you conveniently twisted your ankle, I thought it would be a good opportunity for you to buy new shoes.
Skylar's eyes widened in surprise. She couldn't believe Irvin had thought of this. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot to her. It showed that he still cared, even after all these years. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. She stole a glance at him, hoping for a response, but he remained silent, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. His stoic expression left Skylar feeling perplexed once again. Irvin helped support Skylar entering the shoe store, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of joy as they browsed through the aisles. As Irvin tried different shoes on her, Skylar sat on a nearby bench, watching him with a fond smile. She couldn't help but admire this beautiful moment, even in such a simple moment.
Do you like this shoe?
Asked Irvin without looking at her. No answer from Skylar. She was still in her dreamy world. Irvin looked up at her and found her eyes locked on his in a daze.
Skylar, do you like this shoe?
He repeated. Skylar blinked, snapping out of her reverie. She quickly glanced down at the shoe in Irvin's hand and nodded absent-mindedly. Yeah, that one looks great, she replied, her voice filled with distraction. Irvin raised an eyebrow, sensing that something was off. He gently placed the shoe back on the display and turned his full attention to Skylar.
Hey, are you okay?
He asked, concern lacing his voice. Skylar's mind raced, trying to come up with a plausible explanation. I'm fine, really, she assured him with a forced smile, just lost in thought for a moment. Irvin studied her face intently, searching for any sign of deception. After a brief pause, he sighed and decided to let it go for now.
All right, if you say so,
he said, giving her an unsure look in return. Irvin continued to browse through the store, looking at different pairs of shoes. Skylar waited on the bench patiently. After what seemed like hours, they finally settled on a pair of sneakers for Skylar. As Irvin made his way to the counter to pay, Skylar called out to him. He turned back to see her still sitting on the bench. Aren't you forgetting something? Skylar spread her arms, hinting Irvin to return and carry her. Irvin furrowed his brows, not amused by Skylar's antics.
Did she really think I'm a fool to keep falling for her little games?
He walked back to her and put her arm around his shoulder, supporting her to the counter without a word. Skylar was happy at Irvin's gesture, but felt a bit uneasy as she watched him quietly take out his wallet to pay for her shoes. Hey, these are my shoes. I will pay, she said, digging into her purse. Irvin was already handing his card to the cashier.
I want to buy it for you,
he replied, his eyes fixed on Skylar. Skylar looked up at him, surprised. Then, I owe you dinner, she said, flashing a smile. Irvin didn't say anything, his eyes still fixed on hers as if searching deep into her mind. The cashier returned his card, and he broke his gaze, grabbing the bag of shoes and supporting Skylar out of the store. Just outside the store, Irvin let go of Skylar, making her stumble. He began to walk ahead, leaving her behind. Hey, Irvin, what are you doing? Skylar called out, confused. Irvin stopped in his tracks and turned to face her.
No one is looking, so you can stop pretending now,
he said, his voice tinged with annoyance. Pretending? What do you mean? Skylar asked, puzzled.
I know you can walk perfectly fine,
Irvin explained.
I'm tired of playing these games, Skylar. You always put on this act of helplessness to get what you want.
His words took Skylar aback. She had never intended to manipulate Irvin or take advantage of him. She just wanted to spend some time with him. She never lied about twisting her ankle. It still hurts a lot. But looking at Irvin now, she realized that her actions may have been misinterpreted. I'm sorry, Irvin. I didn't mean to make you think. I just wanted to spend some time with you, Skylar said, her voice filled with sincerity. He sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration.
Of course I know that, Sky. You don't even have to explain it.
The air was tense between Skylar and Irvin as they stood facing each other. Irvin's anger was palpable, making Skylar feel like she had done something terribly wrong. But had she? After all, it was Irvin who had promised to have that talk with her. And yet, here they were, a week later, and nothing had happened. Skylar couldn't take it anymore. "If you know that, then why are you getting mad?" she snapped. "You promised me we would talk it out. Why didn't you contact me? Or are you just lying to get rid of me?"
You're going too far, Sky.
He retorted.
I promised you we would talk, and we will. It's just been busy.
Skylar wasn't having it. "Then at least text me, or let me know so I don't have to wait for you," she said firmly. Irvin's expression softened, and he let out a sigh.
Okay, it's my fault, I know that.
Skylar was feeling angry. "No, you don't know, Irvin. You don't know anything!" she exclaimed. "Do you have any idea how much this has been weighing on me? I've been going crazy trying to figure out what's going on between us. I was even at the bookstore looking like a complete fool trying to find information about why men are so complicated." Skylar's outburst took Irvin aback.
So that was why she was at the bookstore.
He had no idea she had been struggling so much. He could feel the weight of her emotions and the depth of her inner feelings that had been weighing her down. "It's not fun to be the person who's always waiting," Skylar said, her voice filled with pain. Irvin felt a pang of guilt in his chest. He realized he had been neglecting her feelings, which would have hurt him too if he were in her position.
Sky,
"I guess we're both playing games with each other, huh?" she interrupted, adding, "Call me whenever you're ready to talk." As she limped away, Irvin couldn't help but notice the pain in every step she took. He suddenly felt a rush of emotions, concern, worry, and a twinge of guilt. Was she really hurt, or was it just a ploy to get his attention? Had he misjudged the situation? Why didn't she correct him if he was wrong? He quickened his pace and gently held her arm to stop her.
Sky, wait. You're hurt.
His eyes looked down at her ankle with concern. Skylar turned to face him, her eyes reflecting a mix of pain and anger. "You might want to reinvestigate. I might just be pretending." She yanked her arm out of his hold, but before she could take another step, Irvin grabbed her and carried her in a bridal style. She protested, but her body language showed surprise and vulnerability. "What are you doing? Let me go."
Yeah, keep pretending so I can care for you.
That was all Irvin said. His voice sounded a bit angry. Skylar's mouth hung open in awe. She was at a loss for words and couldn't believe what was happening. Irvin had just told her to keep pretending so he could take care of her. But what did he mean by that? Wasn't he angry with her before because he thought she was lying about her sprained ankle? Skylar's mind was racing with questions, and it made her head about to burst. Irvin was fuming with anger as he drove the car in silence. The fact that Skylar never corrected him about her sprained ankle was eating away at him.
Did she enjoy making me look like a fool?
As they finally arrived at his condo, Skylar's nervous voice broke the silence. "Where exactly are we?"
My place.
answered Irvin as he turned off the engine. Skylar gawked as her heart pounded in her chest. "Your place? What about my place? Irvin, take me home," she demanded.
No, Sky, I promise to take care of you.
Skylar's heart skipped a beat at what he said. "You don't have to force yourself," she said, not falling for his words. Irvin leaned closer to her.
I'm not forcing myself, Sky. I'm offering myself to you.
Skylar's heart skipped another beat as she looked into his eyes. What did you say?" asked Skylar, heart racing as she watched Irvin get out of the car without answering her question. Her mind spun with possibilities as he walked around to her side and opened the door. She hesitated when he reached over to remove her seatbelt. "Irvin, you—" This made Irvin look at her. His face was inches from hers as she gulped. He then removed the seatbelt and carried Skylar inside, gently setting her on the couch. She couldn't help but feel a sense of unease settling in the pit of her stomach. Irvin's actions were unpredictable, and she wasn't sure how to interpret his sudden shift in behavior. Was he really going to do it? Like, now? Irvin leaned into her as Skylar felt his weight pushing her down. "Irvin, I'm not ready!" Skylar burst out and made Irvin stop and look at her in confusion.
Ready for what?
He asked. You know, she trailed off, her cheeks flushing red. Irvin's eyes widened in understanding, and he chuckled softly.
What are you thinking?
Huh? Irvin leaned again, grabbed the pillow behind Skylar, and held it so she could see.
I was aiming for this.
He explained, trying to hold his laugh. He placed the pillow behind Skylar to support her back. Skylar watched him in confusion. But you said...
You said you wanted to spend some time with me. I'm offering you my time now, so we can talk.
Skylar felt her cheeks warm up in embarrassment. She had completely misunderstood his intentions. "Oh," she stammered, feeling foolish. A chuckle came from Irvin, and Skylar shot him a death glare. "What do you expect me to think?" shouted Skylar. "You said you're offering yourself to me, and I immediately thought, you know..."
Okay. My mistake. I am so sorry. I'll be right back.
Chuckled Irvin as he walked away. Skylar wished she could disappear as she watched him disappear into the kitchen. She couldn't believe she had misinterpreted his actions so drastically. She had never felt this embarrassed in her life, and without thinking, she grabbed the couch pillow behind her and buried her face in it. She let out a silent scream, trying to muffle her emotions and keep them from overflowing. As she sat there, she could feel her heart racing, her mind racing at her foolishness. She calmed herself down and finally noticed her surroundings. Irvin's house was very well furnished. His walls were painted white, and the floor had a brown carpet. She saw a couple of paintings on the wall, a big flat-screen TV, and a bookcase with books. It was a mix of modern elegance and cozy comfort, which caught Skylar off guard as she looked around. Back in college, Irvin was never considered a neat person. Or was she never really paying attention because she was always messy? Just then, the sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts as Irvin returned with a bag of ice and diclofenac topical gel. He knelt in front of her and gently lifted her swollen ankle, placing it on his lap. As he started to apply the gel, Skylar couldn't help but feel embarrassed by the unexpected touch. She looked at Irvin, who then asked her a question that caught her off guard.
Skylar, why are you afraid of me?
Skylar's eyes widened in surprise, and she quickly replied, "I'm not afraid of you, Irvin." But Irvin wasn't convinced.
Quit lying. You fell because you were trying to run from me.
Skylar's face turned red with embarrassment. I did not.
You did not want me to know that you were trying to find answers about me. I get it.
Irvin finished it for her. Finally, Skylar admitted, I just wanted to understand." Irvin's gaze softened, and he nodded as if he understood.
Sky, there is nothing much about me for you to understand. What I did back then was for the best, and you may come to appreciate it.
Skylar felt a shiver run down her spine at his words. His revelation that he believed his actions were for the best confused her. "How could you say that, Irvin? When you left, I was devastated. I felt lost and alone every day that you were gone." Irvin's expression softened, and a flicker of regret crossed his features.
I was torn too, Sky. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but our relationship was toxic. We were both hurting, and we couldn't seem to fix it. We just kept yelling at each other, and it felt like we would never get anywhere.
Skylar heard his words, and her heart began to ache with a deep longing for the truth that had been tugging on her soul for so long. She knew that their relationship had been toxic in the past, and it was futile trying to fix it. They had both been in a fragile mental state back then, unable to truly listen to each other and work through their issues. They had encountered people who wanted to get their way, and it kept getting messier each time. As she reflected on their relationship, Skylar wondered if Irvin's departure had been for the best. It may be the only way for them to move forward,